Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Help the region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire region. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education. It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Help the region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire region. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education.
Are you looking to make smarter financial decisions or for opportunities to help secure your financial future? Well, here is something just for you. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and its Financial Information Month festival partners in St. Kitts and Nevis invite you to a grassroots investment seminar. It's happening this Thursday, 31st October at the Antioch Baptist Church in 𝐅𝐈𝐌 starting at 4:30 p.m. We're calling on members of community groups, non-profit organizations, and small business owners. Come and learn how to grow your resources, get financial insights, network with like-minded individuals and organizations, and get answers to your questions on investing and investments. Visit the Financial Information Month Facebook page to register or contact us via email at info@eccb-centralbank.org.
It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Help the region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire region. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education.
Are you looking to make smarter financial decisions or for opportunities to help secure your financial future? Well, here is something just for you. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and its Financial Information Month festival partners in St. Kitts and Nevis invite you to a grassroots investment seminar. It's happening this Thursday, 31st October at the Antioch Baptist Church in 𝐅𝐈𝐌 starting at 4:30 p.m. We're calling on members of community groups, non-profit organizations, and small business owners. Come and learn how to grow your resources, get financial insights, network with like-minded individuals and organizations, and get answers to your questions on investing and investments. Visit the Financial Information Month Facebook page to register or contact us via email at info@eccb-centralbank.org.
pleasant good afternoon to all. I am Shea Grant, the Chief Investment Officer of the 𝐄𝐒𝐓𝐈𝐕 Capital, and your moderator for this evening's event. It is a privilege to welcome all of you here today at this grassroots investment seminar, where we aim to introduce you to investing and the Eastern Caribbean securities market. I would now like to invite Mr. Jaheim Warner to lead us in prayer, followed by the Senior Corporate Relations Officer at the ECCB, Mrs. Elizabeth Wayland Phillip, to offer some brief remarks. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father, for you have told us how better it is to have wisdom more than gold, how better it is to have insight more than silver, Lord. We ask, as we are here today, to consume everything we are able to consume in our minds, Lord, that all needs are able to be met, that with all the wisdom that will be bestowed unto us, that we go outside and that we apply it in its entirety, Lord. For you have said, for those who toil in this earth, there are riches here on this earth and in heaven for them, Lord. Father, allow this information to be grasped fully for the moderators and the speakers today to speak gracefully, Lord, and that we go outside and apply this wisdom with integrity, Father. For all wisdom is used in this world to be applied fully, Lord. So, Lord, we thank you here today for allowing us to be here, for allowing everyone to make it here safely. And if you would allow us to go out safely, Father. We thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Financial Information Month FIM Festival Grassroots Investment Seminar. On behalf of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and its FIM Festival partners, thank you for being here. Your participation makes you a part of FIM Festival history, a journey that began in 2002, driven by collaborative vision shared by the ECCB, financial and academic institutions, the media, private and public sector partners, and community groups like many of you here today across the 8 ECCB member countries. I commend you for taking this step toward expanding your financial knowledge, whether you're here to begin your investment journey or looking to enhance your existing strategies. Prioritizing financial growth and planning can benefit not only you, but also your communities. As some of you may know, our ECCB Governor, Mr. Timothy N.J. Antwine, is deeply committed to fostering growth in our region through investing. Currently, only 1 in 25 people in our region invest in securities like stocks and bonds. That's about 4%. That is compared to nearly 60% in the United States. Our purpose here today is to help increase that percentage to empower residents and citizens and to demonstrate that investing is within the reach for everyone. Investing is not about wealth. It's about creating opportunities, and it's something each of us here can do. Today, we'll explore insights, strategies, and tools that can support you in reaching your financial goals. Remember, investing goes beyond numbers. It's about building a secure future for ourselves and our loved ones. Let's make this session interactive and engaging, so feel free to ask questions and learn from each other and our presenters here this afternoon. Thank you again for being here. So let's get started.
Thank you, Jaheim, and thank you, Elizabeth. We have 2 poll questions, which will help us get a sense of how familiar you, the attendees, are with investing prior to and after the knowledge shared by our panelists. Please note the answers will remain private and you will not be graded. To answer the first question, go to www.menti.com on your cellular phones or other devices. For those of you joining us online, that is www.menti.com. Enter the code 57142333 and you will be prompted to answer 4 questions. I will repeat the code. It's 57142333. 57142333. We will allow you a few minutes to respond before we proceed. Thank you very much for your participation. We hope that by the end of okay. Third question. What is the main reason why you are attending this seminar? And the options are to learn the basics of investing, to develop a long-term financial plan, learn about specific investment options, for example, mutual funds, stocks, and bonds, and for any other reasons. And the final question, how did you hear about this seminar? Was it social media, an email invitation, via the radio, or a friend or colleague? Thank you very much for your participation again. So we hope by the end of this grassroots investment seminar, you will gain an understanding of the basics of investing, understand the roles of the Eastern Caribbean securities market, the regional government securities market, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, and the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. We also hope that you would be better informed about the different investment options available to you on the securities market, and that you would have gained insight into how you can get started on your journey towards investing. Today, our panel consists of 4 remarkable professions who are champions in their field. Each panelist brings a perspective honed by both challenges and achievements within the area of work. And I am confident we will all gain from the knowledge shared with us today. Our first presenter will be Mrs. Yuluka 𝐅𝐈𝐌, who is a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. She joined the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange in October 2021 as the Business Development Executive. She holds a Master of Science in Project Management from Arden University in the United Kingdom and a Bachelor of Commerce with a double major in Finance and Management from St. Mary's University in Canada. Mrs. 𝐅𝐈𝐌 is a member and a past executive member of the Business and Professional Women St. Kitts Charter. She enjoys spending time with family and friends and engaging in nature-related activities. Our second panelist, Ms. Samantha Lewis, is the head of the Policy, Data Analytics, and Regulatory Information Division at the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. She has over 15 years' experience in the financial sector and holds an MBA in International Business from St. George's University in Grenada and a Master of Science in Finance from the University of Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. Ms. Lewis is a strong advocate for growing and developing and ensuring the financial integrity of the Eastern Caribbean securities market. We also have with us this evening Ms. Julietta Edingborough, who is the Acting Director of the Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics Department at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. She has a wealth of experience in public finance and debt management, having led these work streams at the ECCB for over 20 years. Mrs. Edingborough holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics and Accounting from the University of the West Indies and a Master's degree in Economics and Finance from Leeds University Business School. In her role, she is responsible for the promotion and development of the regional government securities market by monitoring activity on the market and providing policy proposals to safeguard the stability and enhance the development of the market. Our final presenter, who is joining us virtually, is Mr. Lawrence 𝐆𝐑, who currently heads the securities brokerage business at the Bank of St. Lucia Limited. He holds a master's degree in finance and has been in the banking industry for the past 30 years. Mr. 𝐆𝐑 has been licensed by the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission to carry out securities business in the ECCU since 2002. He is one of the most experienced brokers in the region, having been instrumental in numerous capital and debt-raising initiatives for institutions and governments. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to our panelists. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Before we get started, we have just a couple housekeeping matters. We kindly ask that those of you here with us at the Antioch Baptist Church place your cellular phones on silent or vibrate. We also ask that all questions for the panelists be reserved until all presentations, and that all questions from our virtual participants be posted in the chat. Now, without further ado, I will ask that we begin with Yuluka, who will introduce us to the concept of investing and provide some insight on why we should invest.
Thank you, Trey. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today representing the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. Thank you for those who braved the weather to come out here today in person, and of course we have persons joining us as well virtually. So in keeping with the theme, what we're going to do is look a little bit to understand the difference between savings versus investing, because the theme is from savers to investors. Then we'll discuss why investing is important. We'll talk about some of the investing in securities and some of the security types, particularly that exist in our market. And then we will have a little discussion on risk versus return. Okay, so essentially, savings and investing are both important for financial management and to meet your financial goals. As persons would know, saving is what's left over after you've earned an income and then you spend on your bills and consumer spending, etc. The action of saving, we usually then put aside these funds, usually in an account at a commercial bank or credit union. And this act is essentially what we do. We put aside funds for a rainy day. So savings, the purpose is typically for short-term goals and short-term emergencies. So you have put aside some funds in the event of an emergency. Investing is usually aimed more at long-term growth. And so you put aside, well, the concept of investing essentially is purchasing an asset with the expectation that the asset over time will increase in value or that you will earn an income from the asset that you've purchased. So that's essentially what investing is. And it's usually done on a long-term basis. Sometimes, because you do have short-term investment vehicles, but mainly persons invest with a long-term vision. You may want to save. Do you want to invest to grow some funds so that you can set aside for your children for further studies? You may want to ensure that you have funds when you retire. You may want to have a nice travel excursion at a certain point in your life, etc. So these are more long-term related. Typically, risks associated with saving, there is some risk. It's not a zero-risk situation. But it's generally low risk. So you save at a regulated bank. Yes, there may be situations, but it's very rare where banks go under, etc. And so saving tend to be a safe way of investing, of putting aside funds. Investing, it's usually a little more risky than saving, but of course, when we go into more details about the different types of securities, there are different levels of risk. So when you compare saving versus investing, investing is a little more risky compared to saving. Typically also, saving is more passive in that you put your funds in an account, you leave it there, it gains a little bit of interest, you continue to put some more aside, you don't really do much in terms of a savings account. Investing, you're usually a little more active in that you monitor your investments. You might make some changes to diversify your portfolio. So it's a little more active in terms of how you go about investing. Generally, when you think about saving, you are, even though there is some interest, and typically in our region it's around 2%, some institutions may go a little higher, 3.5% maybe the max. But savings is generally low interest bearing. And then investing, you have the opportunity, because it's a little more risky, and we'll talk about the relationship between risk versus return, you usually have more potential for gaining more in terms of your return. So we consider saving to be more preservation of wealth, whereas investing is more building onto your wealth. And I don't know if you can see it clearly. It's a little far for me, but there's a graph that I've included there just to show you, sort of depict saving versus investing in a graphical form. So there's an S&P index, Standard & Poor's. It's essentially an average of stock performance of 500 top companies in the US. So it's the stock performance. So the darker portion shows over time, and I think it's 40 years, if I could. Yes, it's over a 40-year period. So essentially, over a 40-year period, if you invest £200, you put £200 toward your saving versus putting £200 toward investing in equity in this case. You can see that even though there's a bit of volatility with the equity portion over a 40-year period, you will gain 1.3 million through investing in stocks versus 143,000 if you save. So that's why we consider saving to be more of a preservation of wealth, whereas investing is building wealth. So one of the things I also didn't mention, it was not on this slide, is liquidity. So essentially for savings, there's more liquidity because if you can just go to your savings account and withdraw the funds, whereas investing, it's usually a little less liquid, although you have different investment vehicles, but it's typically, it's not as easy to get the cash from investing as it is versus savings. So investing is an effective way to put your money to work for you, essentially. One of the things, as we discussed and as the graph would have shown before, is that it generates wealth. Investing can help your money grow faster than simply saving it. And over time, the compounding effect can significantly increase your wealth. So that's why it's important to also consider investing and not just saving. Also, there's inflation protection. So yes, you're getting a 2% and so on your savings over time, but then you remember inflation is also happening, and all of us are feeling it after COVID. There's a lot of inflation going on. So even though you are getting some funds increasing on your savings account over time, when you factor in inflation, sometimes you're actually getting less than what the value of your funds are. So investing protects against inflation because typically the return that you get outpaces inflation. And of course, also it's income generating. So there are certain investments that can generate ongoing income, such as dividends from stocks or rental income from real estate. Income generation is one of the benefits of investing. It helps you attain your financial goals faster. So savings also helps to some extent, but depending on what your financial goals are, and in order for you to get to them at a faster pace and for you to grow your wealth, it's better to invest. And then, of course, once you invest wisely, then there is more financial stability when it comes to investing. One of the things that I didn't mention in the slide, but this is also important, the more you start investing and the more you gain experience and knowledge in investing, the better you get at it, and the more you're able to then make wiser decisions to improve your financial planning so that you can meet your financial goals. Okay, so let's get into the other slide, which talks briefly about securities. And so what we're talking about when we refer to securities, they're financial products or instruments issued by companies and governments to raise capital. So a company or say a government wants to build roads, etc. They may raise funds on something like the exchange, and we'll talk about that later. And then once they raise funds by issuing a bond or a treasury bill, investors then purchase those securities and the government then gains those funds as capital. So it's a financial product or instrument used by companies and governments to raise capital. They are generally classified into two main types. They're equity, and equity sometimes is referred to as stocks or shares. That may be more familiar to you. It represents ownership in a company with specific rights, including the ability to share in profits. So owners of equity may receive periodic income payments from profits from a company. And these are called dividends. I think you all might be familiar with that. Then the second type of, the main type of securities are debt securities. And these are things like bonds, treasury bills, treasury notes. And what they are is essentially loans that investors make to an issuing company or government. So we as investors, it's almost as though we are loaning a company or government funds, and then they pay us back in interest. So they pay us back both the principal, what we've lent them, as well as interest payments. That's essentially how debt securities work. Treasury bills are typically assigned a par value or face value, which the bill is worth. And then you buy the bill on a discount or below par. And at the end of the term of the treasury bill, you then receive the balance, which is essentially what your return will be for that investment. Treasury bills have the shortest maturity in terms of these securities, and it's usually 1 year or less. Whereas treasury notes, that are similar to treasury bills, they have a medium maturity ranging from 2 to 10 years, and they generally pay interest every 6 months. Treasury bills and treasury notes are typically, they're sovereign securities, meaning that they're issued by the government, so they're government securities. Bonds can be both government or corporate, meaning companies can issue bonds or government can issue bonds. And a bond is a contract between the investor and a borrower, where an investor lends money to the borrower in exchange for interest, which we would have discussed before, and then repayment of the principal. There are other securities, including derivatives, hybrid securities, EFTs, etc., as well as mutual funds. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'll just touch on mutual funds, since these are some of the funds that are common in our market. So a mutual fund is a type of investment that pools money from many investors to buy a variety of assets, such as stocks, bonds, and other securities. There are mutual funds that just have equity securities, but there are also mutual funds that have a mix of various asset types. So investors in a mutual fund own shares in that fund and not in an individual company. So the fund performance determines the returns and risk for investors, and the fund's manager is responsible for selecting the investment. So typically, a mutual fund is managed by a fund manager. And this example I saw online, which I think might be easier for you to understand. So think of equity as buying a car, and then when you sell that car, the funds belong to you, and because you own that asset. And mutual fund is like a group of friends and colleagues purchasing a car dealership. So based on the portion of funds that you put in to purchase the car dealership, when you sell some of those vehicles, and there are different types of vehicles in that car dealership, when they sell, you get a portion based on what you would have put in. So that's kind of maybe an easier way to understand the difference between equity and mutual funds. Okay, so now that we've touched on securities, let's take a look at risk versus return. And as I would have indicated before, it's a positive relationship. So typically, the more risk you have, the higher potential for return. Risk is a degree of uncertainty and or potential for financial loss. And it may encompass various factors, such as in terms of investing, such as market volatility, economic conditions, and specific asset risks. And return is essentially the gain or loss made, so you can have a negative return versus a positive return on an investment over a period of time. In terms of we indicated the higher the risk, the lower. I also wanted to mention standard deviation, which is a statistical measurement of how far a variable such as an asset, an investment return moves below an average. So an example is the index, which is an average. So you know that the line goes based on an average. And if the price of a security goes below, goes above, goes below, goes above, and it varies. It's called standard deviation is higher, which means that the risk related to that particular asset would be higher versus something that you know that you purchase something and the price is likely to unlikely to fluctuate much and it's going to stay around the same. So in those types of securities, then the risk is less volatile, and so it's less risky, those types of securities. There's also a relationship between risk and time. So the longer the duration of an investment, for example, a bond, a debt security like a bond, and bonds are usually longer term as mentioned, they're usually higher risk than, say, a treasury bill, which could be 3 months to a year. The reason for that is the longer period of time you have, the more uncertainty might pop up during that long time. And so as a result of that, typically a bond will then give you a higher return, so the interest rate will be much higher than what you will get for a treasury bill because it builds in for that risk. So typically securities that you invest in, if you are conservative and you want to invest in securities with a lower level of risk, typically the return is a little lower than if you're willing to take a higher risk, then you will get a higher return for that risk. So there is that relationship between risk and return. And just to recap, understanding the balance of risk and return is crucial to making informed investment decisions and aligning them with your financial goals. And that's something that you will learn about when the broker speaks about, because each person is different, each person's circumstance might be different, your risk tolerance might be different, the amount of money you have to invest might be different. You may have different financial goals, different circumstances. You might be a family person versus a single person. Your age might be different. So investing decisions may be unique to you, and that is why it's important, and we'll discuss it later on. It's important that you have a conversation with a financial advisor to determine what your risk tolerance is, to determine your goals, etc., before you determine what you should invest in. I think my clicker is stuck. Okay, well, can somebody just manually change the slide for me? Okay, but essentially the next, okay, before we move on to that, I just put a little graph here. The source is Investopedia, just so you can get a sense of, so as you move up, the risk increases, and so you see cash, which is like your savings, the most liquid asset that you have. It's usually lower, it will be the lowest risk in that list of assets. Then you have bonds, which will be generally, so government bonds, in particular government securities are considered based on historical performance, safer investments, and so are more conservative. And as we would have discussed before, even though that graph just shows bonds, we know that treasury bills would likely be lower risk because they are short term versus bonds which are long term. So if treasury bills was placed, then it would be come right after the cash and then bonds. And then we have mutual funds. And mutual funds, even though because many of the mutual funds have stocks, which are a little more risky than debt securities, because they are a pool of different types of securities, they're a little safer in terms of risk than equities, which are to the top. There's also EFTs there, which we didn't discuss too much of, but essentially similar to mutual funds. It's just that they're traded on a daily basis on an exchange. We don't have a lot of EFTs in our market, so we didn't really touch on those. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And then now that we understand the relationship between risk versus return, it's just is not to be too daunting to say, oh, well, I don't want to get into these things because, it's risky to do so. It's just a matter of understanding what the risk levels are, so then you could then determine, how do I manage these risks? So you can diversify, spread your investments across various assets, whether it be treasury bills, bonds, equity, mutual funds. You can also diversify geographically. And that's one of the advantages our market offers, because you can purchase securities in St. Kitts, you can also purchase securities in Grenada, and so on and so forth. So that helps to diversify your risk, because if a hurricane happens in St. Kitts, it may not affect your securities in Grenada, so it helps to balance off that way. And then, of course, market conditions. Economic cycles and market conditions can affect both risk and return. So what is considered a safe investment in one environment may be a risky investment in another environment. So that wraps up my session. It's just important to understand the risks so that you can invest responsibly. And as that quote says, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Essentially what it's saying is that the more you learn about investing and understand some of these concepts, the better you will be at managing your risks versus return and balancing that, and the better investor you will become. So thank you.
Thank you, Yuluka, for a very insightful presentation. One of the points that stood out to me is the possibility to gain relatively high returns through investing over the long run for a given level of risk. The higher the risk, the higher the return. But you need to be able to tolerate that risk event. So thank you very much for that presentation, Yuluka. Audience, remember to note your questions for our engagement at the end of the final presentation. Our second session will now comprise of 3 of our panelists who will provide insight into the roles their various entities play within the securities market and the investment options available to us within the securities market. I will now invite Samantha to kick off this session.
Thank you, Che. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I stand here and I'm happy to see so many persons turned out this afternoon to gather information. I am pleased. I see plenty of women here today. That speaks volume. Guys, that's okay. So you've just heard Yuluka speak about investing. And now you want to know about the market, where to invest. So, I'm sorry. I am honored to stand here and share with you this information on the securities market and the role of the ECSRC, as well as to share with you some information on the different market participants. So now that you've established the topic, I'm sorry. Let me outline what we will cover in this presentation. So I will speak to the securities market, the Eastern Caribbean securities market. I will speak to the market participants, securities traded, the governing legislation. Then I will give you some details about the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission and its mandates, its roles, its history. But before I start, I want you to take a look at this picture. Today is Thursday. What day is market day in St. Kitts? Friday, Saturday, which one? All right. So did you guys visit the market on Saturday last? Why not? You have all your fruits at home? Your vegetables at home? That's okay, but I'm sure you would have been there not too long ago, right? Look at the picture. What they are doing there, they're purchasing and selling their vegetables, their fruits, their provisions. That's a market. I also, sorry, can you go back? Thank you. I also want you to take a look at the organization of that market, the pace at which these people are shopping, how safe they look, right? That's the market you should be aiming to be in, right? Yes. So let's go to the fruit of the matter here now. The next. So it's working. Okay, thanks. The Eastern Caribbean Securities Market. Now, a securities market, you just heard about what securities are, and I just spoke to you about a market. Now put these two together. When you go to a market, you're going to buy and sell. Similarly, when you're in a securities market, you're there to buy and sell securities. Now the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market is simply the securities market in the Eastern Caribbean, the ECSM. And this is just an overview of the market structure. At the hem, you will see the ECSRC, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission, who I'm proudly representing here today. Then we have, thank you, the ECSC and the ECCSD. My colleague will speak to you on that soon. Then the other market players are the licensees, the companies and the individuals that the ECSRC has licensed to operate and conduct securities business, in the securities market. Then we have the issuing companies, the companies that you invest in, the companies who's selling their shares, their stocks, for you to become a part owner. These are the issuing companies. Then you, the investor. So this is briefly the structure of the ECSM. Now, I just spoke to you about the structure. Let's bring it a little closer to the ECSM, the participants, which we speak to the intermediaries and the institutions. I hope you can see. It's a little bit small for me. Oh, wow, it's big in the back there, man. So we have here at the top the market institutions, the ECSC, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Securities Depository. They play a vital role in the operations of the market. Again, my colleague will speak to you on that soon. So look at the securities market intermediaries, or what we call the licensees. We have broker-dealers, and presently we have 6 active broker-dealers, but we licensed about 3 more, who are just not operational as yet. And these 6 licensed broker-dealers are active because they are also members of the Securities Exchange. In St. Kitts, we have 2, the Bank of Nevis Limited, the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, ScanUp, I always get confused with that one. Then we have out of St. Vincent, the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, FCIS from St. Lucia, First Citizens Investment Services. We have the Bank of St. Lucia, out of St. Lucia as well, and my homeland, Grenada, the Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited. So these are the brokers who you would contact to conduct your securities business. Then we also have the limited service broker-dealers. They basically could only trade businesses, securities business. We also have licensed collective investment schemes, and we have 4. Our previous panelists would have spoken about units in our collective investment scheme. We recently licensed 2 of these companies and funds, the BOSL Global Investment Fund and the UTC Global Investment Fund. So if you are thinking about investing in any of these, you may seek to do your research on these companies and make a decision. We also have licensee that includes the management company for the collective investment scheme. And based on the regulations, this collective investment scheme must be managed by a management company who has separate license and a separate entity as well. So we have also the collective investment scheme. Sorry, I'm a little bit, my slides. Okay, right. Right. We also have the collective investment scheme custody services. Those are the ones who custody the assets or who holds the assets for those collective investment schemes. We also have licensed individuals, such as the representatives and the principals, who will be the ones that you will be engaging with when you visit the broker-dealers themselves, the companies. These individuals are called the representatives and the principals. We also have investment advisors. As the name says, they provide investment advice. We have one company and 2 individuals who have received such license to operate. Now, the other market participants I spoke to you about earlier are the reporting issuers. I know you have been listening. Should I ask a question? Who is our issuer? I see smiles. I see you in the back there. You're smiling. Don't worry, I won't put you on the spot. The issuer are the companies who've issued or selling securities. In the Eastern Caribbean securities market, we have a total of 13 issuers registered with the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. 13 of these companies are listed on the exchange, and 22 are not listed. Now, some people usually confuse the exchange and thinking that if you're not on the exchange, you cannot invest in a company. That is not true. It may be better for a company to list on the exchange, but you have to know your options. There are companies who are not listed on the exchange. And the Securities Act says that any person purporting to issue securities to the market, they must register with the ECSRC as a reporting issuer. A reporting issuer is simply, like I said, a company issuing securities to the public and have registered with the ECSRC. That's just the terminology for a reporting issuer. Sorry. If you also look at the graph, you will see there are securities issued from every territory in the on the ECS, in the ECCU. Everybody knows the 8 territories, right? Good. And we also see 2 others, which is Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. They have also issued in our market. So you have options for securities. If we look at the pie chart, you will see a breakdown of the industries where these reporting issuers are from. And as you can see, the largest portion goes to the banking and finance industry. 54% of these companies come from that industry. Just some information for you there on that. Now let's look at the approved securities that are trading on the ECSM. These are basically the options that you have presently if you want to invest on the ECSM. Some are privately traded, I must say, and some are publicly traded. So we have equity stocks. These are the companies that have issued shares. For example, TDC. TDC has listed its shares to the public. Anybody here have shares or have family who has shares in TDC? Wow. That's okay, we're getting there. We are getting there. Also, Carey Brewery, that company is a public reporting issuer as well. They have issued securities to the market. TDC is, however, listed on the exchange, and Carey Brewery is not. But that is okay, right? Okay, so we also have preference shares, and these preference shares currently have been issued privately by a particular company who have targeted select individuals, sophisticated individuals. We also have collective investment schemes. I would have just spoken to the last 2 we would recently have given approval, the Bank of St. Lucia, the BOS Global Fund, and the UTC Balance Fund. We also have repurchase agreements. This is another type of debt instrument issued as a money market instrument, a short-term instrument that is also issued in the market. And so we actually have two. One has been issued privately and the other has been issued publicly. They have corporate paper, that's just basically a corporate paper of company debt, corporate debt, like a bond. The company issued a short-term bond. And that was issued privately again. Then we have the medium-term note. Sorry, that again was issued privately. Have we seen a trend? And you may be excited of what is to come, a crowdfunding platform. So take a moment to take that in as to what are the current available securities on the ECSM. I should mention, though, that the private placements have a particular set of rules, and it means that these companies can only target persons who are sophisticated. They have a certain criteria in terms of their financials, where they are financially, and their academic and intellectual, right? So some of us may not be ever, well, maybe not in the next 5 years or so, targeted. And that's quite fine. We are starting our investing journey soon. So, moving along, I want to speak to you now about the securities market and it being a regulated securities market. Remember when I asked you to look at the farmers' market and I asked about how peaceful the people looked? Do you remember? They were looking so peaceful. So that's one of the benefits of a regulated securities market. It provides peace, no chaos, because there are rules that govern such market. We get investor protection. Who wouldn't want that? We also have market integrity. The regulation ensures that the participants, the licensees, are operating in a particular way, or else we will deal with them. We will. Just cause. We also have some other benefits of a regulated securities market to reduce systemic risk. If the market is not functioning properly, there could be so much risk that could go on to the financial sector. Well, have you ever heard recently of any scams or bad situations that occurred in the market or in the Caribbean recently? Then we are operating in a regulated securities market. We're safe. Yes? Okay, all jokes aside now, I see everybody smiling. I like that. Nice. So we have the governing legislation that governs the entire market, and all the participants has to comply with this Securities Act. It is called the Securities Act, and it's uniformed across the 8 member territories. It's like the law. We also have the securities regulations, and these ones break down the Securities Act. It breaks down into simple and clear requirements that companies under the market participants have to abide by these requirements. So let's talk about the ECSRC. The ECSRC, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. But before I go there, I want you to think back of your foreparents, your grandparents. I know my grandmother, she saved her money under the bed. But our generation now, we're saving in the bank. What happened? Why? What changed our mentality? Now, the ECCB, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, that bank is the regulator of the banking sector. And with its excellent performance of regulating the banking market, persons are confident to start saving in the bank. But today, we are evolving from savers to investors. And I'm sure you expect the same for the Eastern Securities market. And that's why the ECSRC is here. We can be likened to the ECCB, the Eastern Caribbean Securities, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission is the sole regulator for the Caribbean securities market, the Eastern Caribbean securities market. So look at the history. The ECSRC was formed in 2000 under an ECSRC agreement, and it was signed by the member governments of the 8 territories in the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean. The ECSRC has responsibility for the regulation and governance of the securities market. It commenced its operations along with the ECSM in 2001. The main mandates of the ECSRC include the 4 key purposes. The ECSRC has to license, monitor, and supervise any person engaged in securities business. It has to promote investor protection. We love to promote investor protection. It wants to maintain an effective compliance and enforcement programs. And it has to promote the growth and development of the capital markets. These are our main driving purposes. How do we achieve our purposes? Here are some of our objectives that help us stay in line with achieving our purposes. So we set the minimum standard of entry for market intermediaries, like the companies and the individuals. Now, let me say to you, before we license any of these companies, we conduct a robust investigation. It's a robust exercise. We check their financial bringing, their fit and properness, how fit and proper are they, their character. We do background checks on these companies. So you would be comforted in knowing that once this person has a license or company from the ECSRC, they didn't just get that license. They also have to undergo examinations. So that should comfort you some more, that these licensed individuals, they have to be credible. So we also monitor the conduct of business of the market intermediaries. Now, we have licensed these companies. We don't just turn our eyes to them. We don't turn our back on them. As we do, we have to ensure that this ECSM is safe and there is integrity in the market. So we continue to monitor and have surveillance on the market to ensure that these persons are acting as they should, and companies. In terms of the investors, we want to ensure that if you're investing in a company, you have your access to information about that company. So these issuers, they have to submit information and should make information available to you. So if you so decide and you recognize a company has been going bad for a few years, you no longer want to invest in that company, that's your right. But you have to have the information to make such financial investment decisions. So we ensure compliance with the securities regulations. And we also promote, again, and I'm saying it over and over, we promote what? Investor. Good. So here are some ways in which we, at the ECSRC, promote investor protection. I've spoken to some not too long ago. We license market participants. We do our due diligence. We do risk management on these companies. We do our financial assessments of their performances. And like I just said again, we conduct market surveillances. We get market intelligence from participants who complain. So if you have a situation with a broker-dealer, you lodge a complaint. Maybe they're not operating how they should. You recognize something is fishy, something is suspicious. Contact the ECSRC. Then we also have MOUs, Memorandum of Understandings, with other national regulators and international regulators as well. So sometimes companies come in the ECSM to operate, and they want to get a license. We have no idea who these people are. Of course, we are able to reach out to our partners and do investigation on these companies. We also, as I said just now about the complaints, we handle complaints. And one of the things we enjoy doing, which I'm here today and I'm sure you can feel my passion, is to raise investor awareness and education. So we would issue market notices. We recently issued a market notice on a company who has been proposing to issue to do securities business, but the company has not been licensed by the ECSRC. We alert you so you can be on your guard. If you want further information, you can visit our website, www.ecsrc.com. Okay. So now just to give you some other areas, other points as to how we ensure a safe, fair, and transparent, efficient ECSM, I'm just going to speak to a few here. The ECSRC, as the regulator of the market, we formulate policies and rules for the fair, orderly, and efficient operation of the securities market. Remember again that market we saw, that farmers' market, that peace they had, no chaos. We also, and I said it before numerous times, license and regulate the market participants. And we adopt measures to supervise and minimize any conflict and interest that may arise with market participants. And finally, just to say, we take enforcement actions against these companies who are not complying with the law. So some key takeaways as I come to the end of my presentation. The ECSRC provides service to the general investing community through its regulatory oversight of the Eastern Caribbean securities market. Investor protection. How many times have you heard me mention investor protection? It is a key function of the ECSRC. There is strong regulation, and it builds investor confidence, which is one of the building blocks for a stable securities market. So let me tell you, if you are an investor or you're planning to become an investor, your best bet is to stay connected to the ECSRC. Yes? Yes, I see the head shaking. I like that. Stay connected to the ECSRC. The ECSRC is here for you, and we take pleasure in being here for you. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye for now.
Okay, I'm back with you again. Just to quickly go through, I know you all are getting anxious and want to start asking us questions. I'm just going to say a little bit about the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, one of the market participants, as Samantha would have highlighted. Just wait for the presentation to be brought up. As we wait for the presentation, essentially I'll go through who we are, what we do, and then I'll indicate what the securities are available on the ECSC. Oh. Okay, so the ECSC is a the ECSC group, and wholly owned subsidiary, the Eastern Caribbean Central Securities Depository. We were established at the same time that the market, the ECSM, was launched in 2001. So this month actually made us 23 years. We all celebrated an anniversary on the 19th of October. We're headquarters in St. Kitts, but we are licensed to operate across the entire ECCU. The ECSC is a fully electronic platform. So I know sometimes you look at stock markets and you see people trading on the stock floor. That doesn't happen at the ECSC. Everything is done electronically. And it actually is done electronically in the other exchanges as well. So that doesn't happen anymore. So we were launched as a fully electronic exchange. Our subsidiary, the Central Securities Depository, undertakes post-trade clearing and settlement and maintains electronic securities registers. And of course, as Samantha would have mentioned, we are licensed by the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission under the Securities Act. So I'll just highlight our vision, which is to be the medium of choice for wealth creation and capital raising in the ECCU. And I'll highlight some of our primary responsibilities. There are a number of ancillary services, which you can see on this slide. Sorry. But our primary, our core services are to facilitate the primary issuance and secondary trading of corporate and sovereign securities. So just to give you a little breakdown, when you say that you're listing on a primary market, it's essentially when the government or company comes to the market for the first time to issue their security, and an investor purchases that security for the first time. So that happens with our corporate debt, and then on the RGSM, it happens with the government securities. For the ECSC, we also facilitate a secondary market, which is when the investor already has their security, they've already purchased the security and now want to trade it, meaning sell it on the market, and other investors, so individuals like ourselves or institutions or governments, those can be investors as well, they then purchase those securities. So that's secondary market activity where investors sell to other investors, okay? So we facilitate those markets, and we facilitate the clearing and settlement of the issues and trades. We also provide custodial services, maintain securities registers, and maintain the security holders' records. So all of your records are held at the Central Securities Depository. If you need any information about your records, sometimes persons contact us when persons pass away and they have the information they need to make changes or ask about questions, they can contact us for the information, okay? So yes, so as mentioned, we are the platform for the exchange, for the activity on the Eastern Caribbean securities market, as well as the regional government securities market. And there is a proposed market. We are hoping to launch the Eastern Caribbean tokenized securities market. I don't know if you all have heard about digital securities, but we can discuss more if you are aware of those things. We don't have that launched yet, but we're hoping to launch that very soon. And as mentioned, we are fully electronic, and we have T+1 settlement days, which means if you trade or you buy or sell a security on the market today, it's a trade day plus another day before the settlement comes through. Okay, so just to give you some visuals now, to understand what securities we have listed on the market. So we have 180 securities currently listed on the exchange as of 30th September. 167 of them are debt securities and issued at a value of 3.4 billion, and 13 equities, which Samantha would have mentioned. So these are equities that are listed on the exchange, and the market capitalization is 2.2 billion. So we have quite a lot of securities on the exchange for you to look at as options. And you would see as well that we have both U.S. currency issued securities as well as the EC. To give you another visual, we have in terms of tenure, so if you're looking at the sovereign securities, we have, I'm just trying to get it bigger for me. Yes, so we have the largest tenure, we have 91 of the 6 to 10 year bonds, so that's the largest invested, and then you can see the others on the screen in terms of treasury bills. We have both, we have the 91-day treasury bills, 180-day treasury bills, as well as the 365 treasury bills. And then as you can see on the graph to the right, it shows the issues by geographic region. So you can see in terms of government securities that Antigua and Barbuda has the most securities on the market, followed by St. Lucia, etc. The other graph indicates the equities on the market. And so, as mentioned, we have 13, and Samantha would have read out all the 13 companies that are listed on the market, especially the ones here in St. Kitts Nevis. So, on the market, we have 13 equities. The most are actually in St. Kitts and Nevis, 5 of them. And then we also have on the other side showing the sectoral diversification. So we have securities in the financial sector, we have them in the utilities sector, we have energy and communication, and we have diversified. Diversified, I think, companies like Horsfords and TDC are considered to be diversified because there are a number of different businesses that they operate under a number of different sectors. And that's it. So essentially, as the graphic shows, that the best time to invest was yesterday, but the next best time is now. So get all the information you need, the information there. We have lots of information on our website, ecsdonline.com. You can go on our homepage. There is a tab called FAQ, which is frequently asked questions. You can click on that tab to get some answers to some common questions. We also have information center where you can download brochures, etc. We also have brochures outside. So for the persons that are here in person, you can collect some brochures. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, good afternoon once again. So we've heard a lot about the ECSM, corporate securities. My role is to share information about the government side of the market. And so I will be focusing on debt securities that are issued by the member governments. And I would just start by asking, by a show of hands, how many persons here have heard of the RGSM? None. Or are we just afraid to raise our hands? So it says a lot because it means that there isn't enough information out there as it relates to the government side of the market, and so I would attempt to share some information on that aspect of the market. So quickly, I would just briefly look at what is the RGSM. So no one has heard of the RGSM, but the RGSM is the Regional Government Securities Market. And the RGSM was established in 2002. So that market is now 23 years come next month. And it is not well known. The market was established to address the fragmentation in markets across the 8 member countries. So prior to the establishment of the RGSM, if one wanted to invest in government securities, one would have had to walk into the Treasury Department in the member countries and invest. It means then that I am in St. Kitts and Nevis. If I wanted to invest in Antigua and Barbuda or Grenada, then I had to go to those treasury departments in those countries to be able to invest. And so that's why the RGSM was established, to address that fragmentation in the market and to allow persons to be able to invest across the 8 member countries seamlessly. There are currently 5 member countries who are issuing securities on the RGSM, and they are displayed there. The wording sometimes is a bit small, but at least the flags are there to show which countries are currently on the market. So we have Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So those are the 5 of our 8 member countries that are currently issuing debt securities on the RGSM. Just to note, though, that when the market started in 2002, St. Kitts and Nevis was the first government that would have issued on the market. Since then, we've had some treasury bills issued by the Nevis Island administration, but St. Kitts and Nevis is not currently on the market. And then our 2 other member countries, the 2 British overseas territories of Anguilla and Montserrat, they have not issued yet on the market. So these are the 5 countries that if we wanted to invest in government securities, it would have to be in one of these countries' securities. To do business on the RGSM, as we've heard before, it has to be done through one of the 6 licensed broker-dealers. And Samantha would have indicated the names of the 6 licensed broker-dealers throughout the member countries. And just to note that although St. Kitts and Nevis, as I indicated, is not currently issuing on the market, there are 2 brokers that reside in St. Kitts and Nevis. Samantha spoke a lot about the regulation of the market and trying to ensure that there is protection of all investors. Similarly, on the RGSM, the regulators for the RGSM is the Regional Debt Coordinating Committee, RDCC for short. So whereas the ECSRC that Samantha spoke about regulates the ECSM, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market, the RDCC regulates the RGSM. And the RDCC comprises the financial or permanent secretaries of finance in the 8 member territories and the governor of the central bank. So that is the composition of the regulatory arm of the RGSM. Its role, similar to some of what Samantha said, is to facilitate the development of the market, provide market oversight on the operations of the market to ensure that the rules are adhered to ensure that the conduct of the market is acceptable, and one of its roles is also to review and monitor the overall debt position of the member governments. So as I said, on the RGSM, what is being issued are debt securities, and so that contributes to the government's debt, and so the RDCC has a role in monitoring the overall debt position of the member countries in the region. What types of instruments can one invest in on the RGSM? And so we heard about these instruments earlier. So on the RGSM, there are treasury bills, which I think Yuloka mentioned are the shorter term instruments. So again, if you're risk averse, then you would want to focus more on the shorter end of the market. And on the RGSM, there are 3 tenors of treasury bills. The 91 days, 180 days, and 365 days. And then we have bonds, which are categorized by notes, which are the medium-term instruments, 1.25 years to 5 years, and then the longer-term instruments, which are the bonds, which are from 6 to 15 years. And so those are the tenors that currently exist on the market. Of course, we are investing to build our wealth. Investment is not a charitable undertaking. And so when we invest in government securities, similar to if we invest in corporate securities and shares, we are doing so because we want a return. And Uloka also spoke about the relationship between risk and return. So if you do not like to take much risk, then you would tend to lean towards the shorter end of the market, so the treasury bills, which means that your return would be commensurate with that. And so on the market currently, for the 91-day treasury bills, you can earn up to 3.5% interest. For the 180-day, you can earn up to 4%, and for the 365 days, up to 5%. The bonds, as I said, are the longer-term securities, and so naturally, they're a little more risk, and so the earnings and the returns are higher as well. So for the notes, you can earn between 4.5% to 6%, and for the bonds, between 5.8% to 7.5%. And I'm saying up to, because to invest on the market, each of the issuing government has an interest rate cap. And so the rates that I've given are the highest rate that you can get for those particular instruments. So we're all here to understand how to invest as households, as individuals. And the market was established with objectives to help government to raise funds at cheaper costs. But one of the objectives in establishing the RGSM was also to provide investment opportunities for individuals like you and myself. And what we've noted on the market to date, that investments by individuals have been negligible. And by my short survey at the start, it reinforces that. Because if we don't know about the RGSM, how then can we invest on the RGSM? And so what this chart shows is that since the inception of the market in 2002 until September 2024, the regional governments have raised a total of 19.6 billion in debt from debt instruments on the market. However, households, all of us, and those in the other member countries have only invested 1.5% of that. So that's roughly 300 million of that 19.6 billion. So it means the majority of that have been raised from institutional investors. So your commercial banks, your credit unions, your insurance companies. So although the market was set up to provide investment opportunities for residents of the ECCU, we're not seeing that happening in the market. And the last bullet says that of all the households who have invested on the market since over the 23 years, when we look across the region, and we are estimating the population across the region to be around 600,000, only 1,085 households have invested on the market. So we are missing out on opportunities to grow our wealth and to transition from savings to investments. And when we dig further in the data, we recognize that part of the issue has been that as individuals and retail investors, when we try to invest on the RGSM, we are not as successful as the institutional investors. So 40% of individuals who have tried to invest on the market have not been successful in investing. And that is a feature of how the market works. So when you invest in treasury bills, for instance, remember I said that each government has a cap. We all submit our bids through the brokers. And on the day of the auction, between 9 and 12, when the auction occurs, the bids are sorted by lowest interest rate to highest. And we are all investing because we want to earn more. And so as an investor, I would bid at the highest rate I'm allowed to bid. So if it's a 91-day treasury bill and the maximum rate that you can bid at is 3.5, all of us would bid at 3.5. On the other hand, institutional investors, the commercial banks, they're liquid. They have funds that they're not earning anything on. And so for them, 1%, 2% is significant earnings for them. And so they would bid at those low rates. And as I said, the bids are sorted in lowest to highest. And so when the market clears at the point in which the individual country has indicated this is the amount they want to raise, at that point is where the market would clear. And those of us who would have bid at 3.5%, if that auction is not fully subscribed, then we lose out. And so that's why the success rate for individuals has been lower than the rate for institutional investors. The other slide shows you the upcoming auctions for the rest of the year. And so since we are all here to learn and to start our investment pattern, I have shown you the upcoming auctions. And we see across the member countries, you have governments of Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia, who would all be issuing securities between November and the end of the year. And you would recognize that their treasury bills, their bonds, and the last column shows you the ceiling rate that I mentioned. So in the case of the first issuance there, government of Antigua and Barbuda, they would be trying to raise tomorrow 20 million EC dollars, and the ceiling rate on that is 4.5%. So it means that is the maximum rate that one can get from that investment. But from that investment. But you have to be in it if you are going to benefit from that. And this information can be found on the ECCB's website, ECSC's website, where you can get information on the auctions that are upcoming. You do your research, you made your decision you want to invest, you contact a broker, and then you are all set in terms of making that first step to invest on the market. So I'm almost done. So recall I indicated that retail investors have not been as successful as institutional investors because of the structure of the market that we operate in. There was a slide earlier that I think I skipped out, which indicated that to invest on the market currently, the minimum amount that you have to invest is $5,000. And thereafter, bands of 1,000. And so we know cost of living is high. We have various expenses to incur. And so you would have had to be building up savings to be able to come up with $5,000 to invest on the market. And then when I put in my $5,000, and a commercial bank can put in $5 million at 1%, and another institution puts in $10 million at 2%, that's 15, and then a credit union puts in $5 million at 3%, and then I put in my $5,000 at 4.5%, the $20 million would be arrived at the credit union's bid, which was 3%. And so what that would mean, how the market functions now, only the commercial bank, because that would be at the top with 1%, the insurance company at 2%, and the credit union at 3%, only those would be successful in that issue. My $5,000 that I wanted to invest to increase my earnings, I am unsuccessful because my rate is too high in that auction. And so after 20 years on the market, the existence of the market, the discussions at the RDCC has been, we are not achieving that objective of providing investment opportunities for households. And so we were tasked to come up with a product that would satisfy households. And so we did a survey of, at least we started with one country and staff at the central bank to hear from them what are their thoughts on investing on the market, have they invested? And like the survey I did earlier, most persons may not have heard about the RGSM, or those who have heard about it have not invested on the RGSM. So we are currently, and the survey showed that, yes, lack of knowledge, as we saw earlier today, the investment amount, the $5,000 to come up with that, and the fees that you have to pay to the brokers, because it's a service they're offering, and so we have to pay to be able to invest on the market. These were some of the impediments for individuals to invest on the market. And so we are working on a new product called a retail bond. And that retail bond would be exclusively for households and NGOs. So we won't have to compete with the institutional investors, the commercial banks, the credit unions. For that retail bond, we're also looking at reducing the minimum investment amount from $5,000 to $500. And that seems more manageable for all of us. I heard thank you. So yes, that seems more manageable for households with all the other expenses that we have to incur. We've also added another feature to it where we are capping the maximum amount to $50,000 so that someone who is very wealthy and wants to come in with $1 million, we want it to be available to the common man so that everybody is able to invest on it. We're looking at a tenor of 2 years, and we're looking at a fixed interest rate of 4.25%. So we won't have the issue that I indicated earlier in terms of the market structure where the market is sorting the bids by lowest interest down to highest. It would be 4.5% fixed, but it would mean that if we are to get in, we'll have to get in early because once the amount that is to be raised is arrived at, and we're looking at a bond of 5 million EC dollars, then it would be a first come, first serve basis in terms of who are able to be successful in that bond. So listen out for this. We are trying to finalize the information on this bond, the details of it, and we're hoping to bring it to the market before the end of the year, fingers crossed, and we would be advertising that some more. And so that is essentially what I wanted to share today. Just to conclude by saying the market has been around for 20 plus years. It has achieved some benefits. It has allowed governments to diversify their sources of income, sources of financing. You don't have to rely on high overdraft fees. The cost of borrowing for the governments has declined. It has allowed, as a region, for us to be able to invest in different government securities across the member territories, the 5 member territories, seamlessly. So you can stay in St. Kitts and Nevis, invest in Antigua. You can stay in St. Lucia, invest in Grenada. And it has increased investment assets for households, though we've seen that enough persons are not investing. And it allows for higher returns for households than the minimum saving rate of 2%. So we heard earlier, most of our funds are placed in commercial banks. The minimum rate that you will get on that is 2%. Some entities give you a little more than 2%. But on the market, you've seen the rates that you can obtain on the market. And in the retail bond that is to come, we're looking at 4.25%. So I would end there, and any questions that you may have, we would entertain them thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies. Quite a bit of valuable information to absorb. It is comforting, though, to note that there is a structured and safe market inclusive of proper governance and regulation to ensure both borrowers and lenders are protected within the ECCU's securities market space. It is also very encouraging to see steps are being taken to increase options for retail investors by restructuring instruments and reducing the minimum required investment amount. So we've been briefed on the available asset types and roles of the respective related institutions. Now let's find out how we can get in on the action. Our final and virtual presenter is Lawrence, who will be shedding some light on how you can get started on your investment journey. Lawrence, are you with us? Can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Okay, give us one moment, Lawrence. Marlon is working his magic.
Yeah. Marlon, are you hearing me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, good.
Yes, Lawrence, so the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Shay. Thank you for the organizers of this seminar. It's always my pleasure to do as little as I can to educate investors in the region. So I welcome such an opportunity to do just that. We've heard about the market infrastructure, all the players in the market, the roles of the different players, the securities available to you investors. Let's see how now we could access all this good stuff. Okay? How do we go about investing in the ECSM? Okay, this has been mentioned before about the 6 intermediaries, so I'll skip this slide. But the first thing you need to do is to go to a licensed broker-dealer. And of that, we have 6 of us in the ECSM. Okay, so the first thing that a licensed broker will ask you to do, in order to commence a relationship with them, an investment journey with them, you need to open a brokerage account with them, right? And for that, let me say that even if we are in St. Lucia, for instance, a lot of our clients are not resident in St. Lucia. So for persons around the region, albeit you may not have a broker-dealer in your exact jurisdiction, but you can deal with any. The internet has made it possible that you could deal with any institution in the ECCU, any broker-dealer. And for the addresses and contact details for any of the broker-dealers, I would employ you to visit the ECSC website. And as I indicated, everything can be done virtually. Complete the account opening forms that the respective brokers will forward to you. So the first thing to do to establish that relationship is to complete the forms. Bear in mind that since you're not signing in the presence of the broker dealers, the registered representative or the principal, that you need to get these documents, these forms, your signatures on these forms notarized. All right, with regards to KYC information, what we require is one piece of government issued identification, and we'll also need proof of address for you. And by proof of address, what we normally accept is a utility bill not older than 3 months. If you don't have a utility bill, we can also use a rental agreement. For those of you in a tenancy agreement, you could give us a copy of that. Also, we could accept a reference letter from a regulated financial institution which stating your personal address. A letter from your employer stating your address will also suffice, as well as a bank statement issued within the last 3 months, as long as it shows your address. And for those of you who probably don't have a bill in your name as well, say you live with your parents, what we can accept, you can accept a copy of the bill, a copy of the ID of whoever the bill name is in, and also just confirmation, a letter of confirmation from this individual saying that you cohabit with them. So it's a pretty simple process. Once you have all these things, the forms, the KYC information, etc., what you do, you scan and you email it to us for our review, and you'll provide our feedback with regards to the completion of the forms, etc. And there you go. You'll have your brokerage account opened. In advising you as to what securities are available, we heard a number of them. The first thing that we'll need to do is to evaluate your risk tolerance. This is crucial to help us recommend what securities best suits your risk profile. And in doing so, the first thing that you need to do is some self-reflection. We have to determine what are your financial goals. What are you investing for? Are you investing for capital gains? Are you investing for income? Are you investing long term? Because all of these will determine what level of risk that you can afford. For example, if you invest in for long term, a suitable security for you would probably be a bond. Also, the level of risk that you could take if you invest in long term, in case the markets goes down, when you invest long term, it gives you enough time to recoup your funds. So so your risk profile also is dependent on how long you want to invest in. Also, your personal circumstances. You need to evaluate your financial situation. Do you have a large enough savings? By having more savings, it could afford you the opportunity to take additional risk as opposed to using all your funds and see something goes wrong in the market and you lose your monies. So we have to assess your if, your income, your savings, how much debt you currently have, your expenses. So it's utmost important to evaluate your financial situation, and this will guide you as to what amount of risk you can take. Also, your experience. Have you lost in the financial markets before? Have you made gains? All these help you assess your risk profile. But more importantly, what we as brokers use, we use a questionnaire that asks you a few questions. There are different scenarios. It might ask for example, if the stock market, if your stock price decreases, what will you do? Will you hold? Will you sell? Will you buy? So based on your risk aversion, it will determine what you will do in that instance. So by doing the questionnaire, it will tell us what is your risk appetite, and that way we'll be able to recommend suitable investments for you. So what's the process of investing? The broker will email you, once that account has been opened, the brokerage account has been opened, the broker will email you all the investment options that's available to you, right? And will assist you with regards to which product best suits you based on your risk tolerance. Once a security has been chosen, a purchase order form will be emailed to you, and then that form will detail what security you're purchasing, what quantity you're purchasing, what price you're purchasing at, and all the applicable fees. So all these will be on the purchase order form that will be completed for you. You sign and return to us. In order to execute that trade, we the broker dealers have to be in possession of your funds. So in addition to sending us the purchase order form, you will need to send the monies to us. And this can be done seamlessly via using electronic funds transfer or wire transfer. And once we get this, the broker will execute the trade for you. And upon successful execution of the trade, you will be provided with a confirmation of that transaction. Post-investment. After you've gotten the securities, whether it be shares or whether it be fixed income instruments such as treasury bills, bonds, etc., the paying agent will notify you. In terms of the interest, fixed income instruments, you pay interest. Every time interest is paid, normally bonds on the RGSM pay interest semi-annually. So every time an interest payment is made, you will be notified by the paying agent that yes, you received interest and to what account it went to. Also, when dividends are paid on equities, on shares, you will also be notified as to what dividends that you received. In the case of equities, the ECSC will normally send you statements on an annual basis, statements of the holding, what securities that you have with the ECSC, you'll get that on an annual basis. Having had these securities now, you need to be kept abreast with news and any happenings that may affect the prices and values of your securities. So it's not just a case of buying and forgetting. You have to be mindful of what's happening in the market, because a number of different things could affect the value of your securities, and you have to be mindful of that. In the case of fixed income instruments, before they mature, your broker at which you bought the security from will notify you that yes, you have a maturity coming up, and they'll also give you the reinvestment options. Once this has matured, what would you be doing with the proceeds? Would you be reinvesting in other securities? That broker dealer will give you the information as to what's available to you to reinvest in. On the minimum investment amounts, well, with regards to equities, the minimum that you could invest is in the number of equities you could purchase. Currently on the ECSC, the number of securities in any stock that you could purchase at any one time is 20. For fixed income instruments such as treasury bills and bonds, the minimum currently is 5,000. Albeit, Julita did indicate that with the retail bond that's been proposed, that minimum for the retail bond will be lowered to 500 as opposed to the 5,000. Another security that's on the market, we have our mutual funds, and let me just make mention of the BOSL investment fund. The minimum for this fund is 200 US, and any additional amounts that you'd want to invest in that will be accepting a minimum of 50 US. So you see, it is very affordable as to what you can start with, especially with the mutual funds and equities. Fees. Currently on equities, and these may vary depending on the broker dealer. However, they tend to be almost the same. Where the commission on equities, you pay a maximum of 3%, and this is scaled down depending on the amount of your investment. The more you invest in the equities, the lower the percentages will be. Also, the ECSE minimum fee on equities is $12. For Treasury bill, we at Bank of St. Lucia charge a commission of only 0.1%. We're practically giving our service away to you, just to invite you to increase your investments in financial securities. And on Treasury bills, the ECSE will charge a commission of 0.03%. On bonds, commission would be the same at 0.1%, but the ECSE fee will just be a little slightly higher at 0.75%. With mutual funds, the fees you pay on this, at least with the BOSL investment fund, the fee is 2.5%. Okay, I made mention of the Global Investment Fund. Just to tell you a little bit about it, as I've already indicated, that the minimum investment in this is 200 US, and you can invest 200, and you can invest every day if you so wish. And this fund has 3 sub-funds with 3 different strategies, and is dependent on your risk tolerance. One, if you want to take risk if you're an aggressive investor and you want to see your monies grow faster, as Yuluka indicated, the more risk you take is the more returns that you should get to compensate you for the risk that you'll be taking. So one of the strategies for that fund is and it has a growth objective. That strategy invests mainly is for long term, and invest mainly in a diversified portfolio of equities. So that sub-fund is invested mainly in international and regional equities, and that is supposed to give you more returns because of the risk that you'll be taking. This fund is designed for investors with a long-term investment horizon and seeking growth. So this is available to you. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the Global Income Fund, and that fund is ready to maximize income while preserving your capital. So if you are less risk averse than the other person, this one may appeal to you. And this strategy invests mainly in international, in corporate bonds, regional bonds as well. So along the spectrum, bonds are theoretically less risky than equities. So you should expect less returns in this strategy because this one will be invested mainly in fixed income securities such as corporate bonds, as I said, and treasuries, etc. And there's a third strategy that's smack down in the middle that could give you exposure to equities as well as income, and that's called the Balance Fund. And as I said, this provides by focusing on long-term capital appreciation for the equities and income maximization through a diversified mix of bonds and equities. So you have, with the BOSL Global Investment Fund, you have 3 strategies that you could choose from. You can choose to invest in one strategy, 2 strategies, or all the strategies. All these are available to you. And just to touch on just the advantages of a mutual fund, it gives you diversification. Say you have $100, you may not be able to, you may only be able to buy one security. However, with all our money pooled, that $100, you could say that portfolio has 100 securities. You essentially investing $1 in each security. So one of the salient advantages of a mutual fund is the diversification that it affords you. Also, instead of you having to choose the security that you may not have the expertise, the time, etc., to fully analyze markets and securities, etc. That's why you'll pay a professional manager to manage your funds for you. So this is another important advantage of a mutual fund. It's also quite affordable. As indicated, the entrance amount for this mutual fund is $200 US. And as indicated, any additional amounts is a minimum of $50. So almost anybody could invest in the mutual fund. It's quite affordable. Liquidity. You can sell that fund. You can sell your position in that fund at any time. We see on the ECSC that sometimes you invest in a fixed income instrument, say a long-term bond, and because the market is not as developed, sometimes you may take some time if you want to sell your position in these, and even equities as well. However, you don't face that when you invest in a mutual fund. And lastly, but by no means least, and Samantha will be happy to hear that, but it offers you the regulatory oversight. This still had to be approved by the Commission, and the Commission, as Samantha indicated, the Commission is set up to protect you investors. So there is a level of oversight of the mutual fund by the regulators as well. Just to show you some examples of returns, I just pulled one security because that's what I'm intimate with. Just to let you know what, instead of having your money on a savings account getting 2%, let's just take an example for one security, for example, 𝐄𝐒𝐓𝐒 dividend. The current price of 𝐄𝐒𝐓𝐒 is $5. The last dividend paid is 60 cents. So if you divide 60 cents, if the company continues to be profitable, if you buy at the price of $5, and the company continues to be profitable and pays at least 60 cents, we're talking about 12% on your monies. How many investments in the region currently give you 12%? Also, looking at our funds, our growth fund from inception, it started in February. From inception to now, it has given returns of 4.76% on the growth fund, the balance fund 2.98%, the income fund 3.51%. So you see there are good securities available for you investors in the region. Now this slide speaks of some upcoming issues that Julita would have mentioned, but these are issues available for November. And if you want to know what securities are available, what securities have been auctioned on the RGSM, I implore you to visit the ECSC website where you'll get that information. And once you have all that information and you want to invest, you need to contact a broker dealer. You can get us by this page. This can be circulated to all of you if you so wish, our contact details. So feel free to contact me or any other broker if you want to start your investment journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. I'm sure the attendees will benefit from the information that you shared, and I anticipate you and other authorized brokers should be seeing increased interest in participation, especially with that 2-year 4.25% government note that Juletta referenced. We now open the floor for any questions. For those of you here with us at the Antioch Baptist Church, please make your way to the mic and ask your questions. For those of you joining us virtually, we ask that you pose your questions in the chat.
I take it we are quite clear with our presentations if there are no questions.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview of what a crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding is where the people come together. Let me start again. So there are some companies who cannot access other means of raising capital. So what they may have is a product, and they may try to get persons to pool their securities and give them a promise that perhaps they may get shares when the company has started and is operationalized. Yes, but that's for companies who are really on the lower end and they cannot access the higher ends of debt on the market. So crowdfunding, we are still in the process. We have some draft regulations about this crowdfunding. And I can give you an example of a crowdfunding I can think of. Okay. Nothing is coming to my head right now, but what you can do, we have information about crowdfunding on our website. Just visit our website, www.ecsrc.com, and you have some information there on the crowdfunding. Thanks.
I'd like to ask another question. I just found it interesting that some companies chose not to advertise on the ECSC platform. You have any reason, any idea why? Because then how would the public know about the products that they offer? Why would a company choose not to list on the exchange?
The main... Sorry, the main reason why some companies may not list may be because of cost. There is a cost to list on the exchange. Yulika is here from the ECSC, and she may want to speak to that costing.
Sorry, I don't know the cost offhand, but typically there are certain obligations that the companies will have to be able to list on the exchange, and so some companies may not want to undertake those obligations, and so they choose not to. There is also a cost as well.
Hi. The question was mostly to the lady that just spoke. In her presentation, she had one about the banks and the lowest bids, where, you know, the one about if you have it at 3.5% and so forth. It was, I think, slide 11 and 12 of your presentation. I did not particularly understand it too well, so I wanted some clarity on that. And then at slide 13, when you spoke on the retail bonds, and I think you said there was one for a maximum of $50,000 or something like that. It was mostly for households, but I was asking, well, what will stop the, how you put it, the international institutions from buying up those 50,000 bonds as well, retail bonds as well, as they do with the other banking information? Thanks.
Juletta, sorry, just to add to his first question for completeness, I think what we may have missed in your presentation was how the final rate is achieved through the process, the bidding process. So if you could include that. The government securities.
Thanks for the questions. So, on the second question, which is easier to explain. So, on the second question, you asked what would prevent an institutional investor from participating in the retail bond, right? Okay. So, the retail bond would only be available to retail investors. So if a commercial bank, which is an institutional investor, goes to a broker and indicate that it wants to invest on the retail bond, it will not be allowed to place a bid. So this instrument is designed and created just for us. So individuals and NGOs. So an institutional investor cannot participate in that one. On the $50,000, the $50,000 was the maximum bid that an investor can place. So an investor can place multiple bids. So I can bid $500, I can bid $1,000, but in total, my bids cannot exceed $50,000. So that's on the second question. On the first question, and that speaks to what Che asked as well. So the process on the market currently is that there is a uniform price auctions that are done on the market. Individuals or investors, however, you can bid different prices. So let's take, for example, a government is issuing $5 million, right? And that is open to both institutional and retail investors. I can bid, I can say to my broker in advance, because remember the brokers are who put in through the bids, that I would like to invest in this auction and the lowest rate that I want is 4.5%, right? A commercial bank would do likewise, go to its broker and say to his broker, I want to take this entire $5 million at 2%, right? Or you have another institution, let's say a credit union, puts in a bid for $2 million at 3%. So we have 5 million at 2, 2 million at 3, and my 5,000 at 4.5. The government is trying to raise $5 million. The way the bids are sorted in the exchange are based on lowest rate to highest. So when the auction closes at midday, the bid that would be on top would be the commercial bank who bid 2%, followed by the credit union who bid 3%, and my bid would be at the end with 4.5%. Remember, the government was trying to raise $5 million. So it means the market would clear at that $5 million with the commercial bank's bid, because the commercial bank bid $5 million at 2%. If, for example, the market was, the government wanted 8 million. So the commercial bank would get its 5 million at 2%. The credit union would get its 3 million at 3%. And so the market would clear at that 8 million, because 5 plus 3, and it would clear at 3%. The commercial bank and the credit union would get a rate of 3%. I had bid 4.5%, so I'm excluded because my rate was, because of my rate, that was sorted at the end, and the 8 million was arrived at before it get to my bid. So that is essentially how the market works.
the bids are all sorted by lowest to highest, and where the market closes, everybody gets that rate at which it closes. And so that's the advantage with this retail bond that we're trying to bring to the market. It would just be for retailers. The rate would be 4.25%, and that is the rate that everyone would get when the 5 million that is being floated is arrived at. So the difference here would be a first come, first serve basis. So as you place your bids with the brokers, my understanding is that they put through the bids based on the timestamp. So if you place the bid next week, you indicate to the broker you want to invest in this retail bond once it's finalized, and I indicated to my broker that I want to also place a bid, but I did that at the end of November. Your bid would be the first that is entered for that broker. And so what would happen in this instance is that it would be based on whose bid went in first rather than the lowest price. Am I clear with that one? Okay, great. Thanks.
We can take the next question.
Hi, good evening. Just a few questions. One is a follow-up to a question that was asked earlier in relation to private companies that are not listed on the ECSM. So if they're not listed, how do I get information or access to what they are providing as products? One. The second question is, as a young person, what is the best way or method for me to begin investing? My third question, financial reports prepared by the ECSM, where a regular investor can have access to them and, read and be informed of what's going on in the market in a simplified manner. And four, outside of the countries that were listed in the presentation, including St. Kitts, St. Vincent, etc., are there other markets in the Caribbean? And if yes, are there any plans to have them join the RGSM?
Okay, so I'm going to take the first question because it asks about the unlisted companies and accessing information. So the Securities Act and the securities regulations requires that all companies provide information to its issuers, its investors. So every company is regulated and required by law to submit information and ensure that these information are made available to its investors. We have the Eastern website right now, the www.eastern.com, where you can access information on all companies who are registered with the ECSRC as reporting issuers. So whether you're listed or unlisted, you have a legal requirement to submit and provide information to the market. So if you want to access this, as I said, you can visit our website at www.eastern.com, or you can contact the companies themselves and request this information, because as an investor, that's part of your right, and our website as well. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks. I would attempt both questions that you asked, the other two questions. So yes, there are other markets in the Caribbean. The different countries have their securities market. Jamaica has, Barbados has, Guyana has. The RGSM is a regional market for the ECCU. So it is established for our member governments of the 8 member territories in the ECCU. And so that market is established to allow the member governments to raise funds. And so because the market is established for these 8 member territories, then there aren't plans to integrate with the other markets in the Caribbean, because each country has their own market. In relation to the question you asked about the best way to start in investing, I would say first you have to have some savings to want to invest. If you want to invest on the RGSM currently, you would need to have a minimum of 5,000 as I indicated. And then you need to speak to a broker. That's why we have licensed brokers in the region. They would be able to, as you heard Lawrence indicated earlier, they would be able to assess your risk appetite. And so there are persons who, based on their expenses, then they may not want to have investments in long securities. And so the brokers would be able to guide you in terms of, based on the risk you are willing to take, the types of instruments that would be best suited for you, whether it would be government securities, whether it would be stocks. So they would be able to give you more details on that. But as an individual, we should all aspire to diversify our portfolio. Growing up, we always heard, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so you want to diversify away from savings, so you should still have savings, but also if you try to invest in other types of instruments, then that would help you to earn a little more. So those would be my comments on those two questions.
I just wanted to add that you have to be very careful with getting investment advice. Only licensed persons are supposed to be giving you investment advice. So just know that for future, okay? All right, thanks.
Yes, and I think you were asking for a follow-up regarding why certain companies choose to list on the exchange versus not. So in addition to some of the reporting requirements, etc., that they may not wish to do, there also are some companies that prefer not to open up their shareholdings to the wider public, and they may want to target specific persons to invest, and so as a result they decide not to list on the exchange, because when you list on the exchange you open it up to anybody who would like to invest in the security.
Lawrence, I think you wanted to come in as well.
Oh yes, yes. Following up on a question with regards to securities from other territories. Currently, if you say you want a security out of Trinidad or Jamaica or wherever, or even the international securities, what you need to go, some broker-dealers do have relationships with brokers in these jurisdictions and can facilitate the purchase of a security for you from these other markets. So what you need to do is contact your broker, and whether it be for other regional securities such as Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, or even international securities, the brokers do offer that service. So it's just about you contacting that broker and seeking that information.
Any more questions?
Good evening. Thanks for the presentations. I hear the word risk, and you explain about the 2% and the 3.5 and the 4.5% gone. You know, so what happens to that for my investment of when I was looking for 4.5%? What happened to my investment? Does it, the word risk, what it happened? When I invest, I bid at 4.5, but I got knocked out. So what happened to my investment? Is there nothing for me? That's it?
So your information in terms of what you would have indicated to the broker, so your funds would be returned to you because you didn't get into the auction. And so you would have those funds to try for another auction another time.
return to minus the fees, but that's not what I...
Yes, they only,
That's not...
yes, they only pay the fee.
My question really...
The broker can answer that one.
My question, you mean Lawrence?
Yes.
Well, it's a question for him really I have as well too, but...
Lawrence, you want to take that question?
Sure. You only pay fees when you're successful with the auctions. So if we as brokers were unsuccessful in purchasing the securities for you, we will not levy any fees to you. You only pay fees upon successful purchase of the security.
Okay. So I had visited the ECSE website before, right? You know, I have a few people that I know in banking told me to check it out, went on it and so on. The website is not necessarily hard to navigate, but the information that is there is what is not so understandable, because I do not know anything about investment and what's not. So I guess that was my question. It would have been nice, or not maybe a question, more so of a comment. It would have been nice to show the investment platform or some of the listings that were there, and maybe say what some of these mean and so forth, right? Well, at least for me.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. I have two questions from our online participants. The first being, how does one become a member of or listed on the ECSE? The second question is, if I wanted to invest in T-bills, what is the minimum amount? Regarding the second question, I think that was answered in the presentation. Currently, the minimum amount for T-bills is 5,000 EC dollars. Luca, would you take the first question?
Hello? Okay, so I'm assuming the person is asking in terms of how do you become a member or listed on the ECSE. It's a company that is interested in listing on the exchange. Is it a company that they're asking about? Okay, I'll make that assumption, because as an investor, to be able to invest in securities, you don't have to register with ECSE. You just have to go to a broker, and then a broker will set up a brokerage account, just as Lawrence would have explained. But if you're a company trying to raise capital on the exchange, then there is a process which we outline on a website, but essentially some of the initial requirements would be financial. You have to have audited financial statements. And we can take you through the process in terms of the things that you will need to have to be able to list. So essentially the first thing would be just to reach out, info@ecseonline.com, to let us know your interest, and then we can then set up a meeting where we can go through what the requirements are. They are also listed on the ECSE website under requirements, so you can look at that as well, but we can also have that conversation with you. You can also go directly to a broker. The broker is also can provide you with that type of guidance as well, in terms of the steps that you will need to undertake to ready yourself to list on the exchange.
Okay, in the interest of time, we will take one more question.
Only one? Because I have a few.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so question one, is realty a good investment option? And additionally to that, is that option regulated by the ECSM? Right? The second question is, what investments are the banks offering other than bonds, mutual funds, and treasury bills? And three, in relation to getting information on the private companies, do I need to have an investor profile before I can request information from such a company like that? And what should I ask for if I'm requesting directly from the company?
So Sure, go ahead, Lawrence.
Okay. Now, I've heard he asked a couple of questions with regards to private company. If the company is not listed on the ECSC or any exchange, it's a private, it's not a public company. So that company owes you no information at all. Understand? So if you want to purchase shares from that company, you probably will need to go to the corporate secretary who would assist you or let you know how you can. But as for information on that company, unless it's a private company, it owes you no disclosure, it owes you no information. But as Samantha indicated, that all listed companies on the ECSC, they have reporting requirements and disclosure requirements, and you can access any information that you want as long as it's a publicly listed company.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Alusha Fesa. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. And Samantha would have done an excellent job in presenting to this evening. Just to answer two of your questions, I think you raised an issue of whether real estate is a good investment and whether it's regulated. There are instruments called real estate investment trusts, where persons come together and they agree to invest in building a certain building, and they rent out space, and once the space is rented, whatever monies are made, they get a return from that. That is not currently regulated in our jurisdiction. We are looking at proposing legislation that would allow persons to be able to do that. But of course, you know how long it takes to get legislation passed in our jurisdiction. That might take a little while, but it's something that we are looking at, because we realize that a lot of people are invested in real estate, and that is a huge part of what we invest in. So it is something that is on our radar, and we're looking at that. To clarify in terms of the private companies that Samantha would have mentioned, there are companies that have offered shares to the public, but they are not listed. That's the companies you're talking about. So these companies are required to submit audited financial statements to the ECSRC on an annual basis. And that information is collected and collated by us, and it is posted on our website in a special section called the Eastern Caribbean Securities Information Network, and that information is accessible to the public. So you will get information on those companies' financial position, what their last financials are, who their directors are, who their management team is. That information is available to you because they are considered to be public companies, as opposed to what Lawrence was saying in terms of private companies. But I think what you were asking is about those companies that have issued shares, but they're not listed. There's still information available on our website.
Thank you very much for all the questions posed. I must say your contribution towards today's discussion is quite inspiring. If you did not get a chance to have your questions answered or have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out via the ECCB Connects on Facebook. It is now time for our second and final poll. Again, please visit www.menti.com to answer those questions. That is www.menti.com. The code for this series of questions is 54342795. That's 54342795. We'll give you about 5 to 6 minutes to answer those questions. So the first question is, how satisfied are you with the seminar overall? I'm waiting for the very satisfied to skyrocket. There must be an error. Please feel free to be honest. Thank you. The second question, how well did the seminar meet your expectations? And again, your feedback is important. It will help us going forward with our preparation and the amount of information, the quality of the information as well that we present. How useful was the information provided? After attending the seminar, how confident do you feel about investing? Oh, wow. Would you recommend this seminar to others interested in investing? Thank you very much for your participation. And I would like to recommend that if you have any additional feedback you would like to present to us, please feel free to reach out on the ECCB Connects at Facebook, on Facebook. I now call on Elizabeth for the presentation of tokens. We're near the end.
Education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Help the region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family.
Financial Information Month, financial empowerment through education.
Okay. Again, let me just thank everyone. Despite the weather that we're having in St. Kitts and Nevis today, you brave it out and you are here with us, and we are happy. And we would like to offer just have a few tokens for some special people who assisted us this evening, and also for those who made it a special effort to be as early as possible. We also want to thank our presenters, our lovely presenters, and ably, of course, and well-informed in presenters as well. First, we would like to call on our first 5 persons who arrived this evening. We have here Michaela Louisi. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. So let's give Michaela a round of applause. Second, we have Novelle Rogers. Do we have Novelle Rogers with us? Probably Novelle left already. What about Lonzo Anthony? Lonzo Anthony, he left as well, okay. Jahim Warner. Jahim Warner. For those of you online, you may not know, but in St. Kitts right now, well, if you're not located in St. Kitts, the weather is not very good right now, so we really want to appreciate those who could make it here. Anesta Sidam. Anesta Sidam. We have two more left. Edwana Holiday. Oh, Edwana Holiday. And Jahim Ventura. Jahim Ventura. Did I call you? Oh, so you're the same person. Sorry about that. Linnell Hodge. Linnell Hodge. So it pays to be early. And we are thankful that you were here early. Now we would like to offer a token to our host, Pastor Connor. I know he is not here this evening. I believe there's someone who will be accepting on his behalf. Okay, and finally, we would like to show our appreciation to our presenters tonight. And we will start off with our moderator, Mr. Shea Grant, who done an awesome job this evening. Next, we'll have the lovely Samantha Lewis from the ECSRC. followed by Juletta Edinburgh. Also the lovely Juletta Edinburgh, sorry. And last but certainly not least, we have 𝐿𝐿 Harmony Brown, who also worked very hard on putting this together, so we're very, very thankful for her. Okay, so that's it for presentation of tokens. For those of you, the other persons who are here, we still have some lovely gifts in the lobby, so please feel free to take a gift or two when you're leaving, and also we have some delicious snacks for you. Have a good evening, and thank you very much.
Financial empowerment through education. It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Heavily region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire vision. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education.